right, ones, welcome to the Conversations with Champions podcast. My name is Johnny Randolph, and I am the founder of the Randolph Speaker Bureau and the Chief Learning Officer. Today,
he's the real champion.
As you can tell, my guest has already jumped in. Today, I have a fascinating guest. He is a mentalist. He is a musician. He is a speaker. He's an entrepreneur. Mr. Daniel Schaffer. Daniel, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. How about you, Johnny?
I'm doing well. Daniel, give me something good to start today off.
Absolutely. Let's start off with something fun. One of the weird things about me is I realized when I was younger, I had this ability that I could bend metal with my mind. Like, it's the craziest thing. All I have to do is just focus on it, and I could feel it in my mind and just give it a little push, and it just starts to bend.
Oh,
Isn't that wild?
wow.
But what's crazy is if I go like this and it just folds itself in half. Isn't that the wildest thing? Should we leave it like that or should we keep going? All right. We're going to straighten it back out and then we're going to come in close because if you watch, you can actually see it twisting right there. And if you were here, you would see that that would not be able to untwist. I mean, honestly, I don't know how it works. I take it, give it a wave, snap my fingers, it goes crazy. I woke up after a bad dream one morning, my whole silverware drawer looked like this. But what's crazy is, I mean, I just get these at Costco. They're super sturdy, but all I have to do is just focus. It becomes like putty. We can take it and just wrap it up, just like so. And then now it becomes a souvenir. And if you were here, I would give it to you because souvenirs help us remember special moments. And so every time you would look at this, I wouldn't want you to just think about what I was able to do, but think about how special you are and everything you're able to do.
Super amazing. And as you can see, we're going to have an excellent time getting a peep literally behind the magic. Well, for those of
Yes.
you out there, if you've never seen the podcast before, or if you have, we're going to take a look at one of Daniel's performances. And then I'm going to sit down and ask him some questions. So we're going to get to know him just a little bit better. So without further ado, let's get started.
Let's do it.
Johnny speaks wheeling in, truth and heart with a brilliant grin. He tells our tale, helps us see the best in you, the best in me. Oh.
One more big round of applause for Danny and James. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been an incredible audience. And because you've been so warm and welcoming to me, I want to share something special and personal from myself. You know, because we're friends now. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with autism. And
That
it's
sniff was
weird
intentional.
receiving a diagnosis like that so late in life because it would have been really helpful when I was a kid. But in fact, it's a surprise I didn't figure it out sooner. I remember back in high school, I was reading Discover magazine, and I read that they could tell that you were lying by watching your eyes. Something about how if you looked away, it was a sign of deception. When I read that, I freaked out. I never look anybody in the eyes. Everyone must think I'm lying to them. So for the next week, anytime I talked to someone, I stared them straight in the eyes, never breaking eye contact, looking directly into their soul. And eventually, it would get so awkward that they'd look away, and then I thought they were lying to me. Eventually, I learned you need just the right amount of eye contact. And I tell you this story not to make you go, oh, look how amazing it is, what he was able to do. but because of the simple fact that in life, for every single one of us, there are things that are very easy and there are things that are incredibly difficult. And one of the things for me that was incredibly difficult was connecting with other people. In fact, I remember people would come up to me and they'd say, "Oh, this is such an amazing group, you're going to love them." And I never understood what that meant. In fact, I always felt like I was at the end of my rope. I didn't know what that meant, a great group. Because every time that I tried to make friends, every time that I tried to connect, I just felt broken. Like I didn't measure up. Until I was in college. And I remember when you go to college, they say, this is where you're going to make all of your friends. This is where you're going to have this incredible social life. You're going to meet all of these people. And I remember when I first went to college, nothing changed. It was still just as hard. And then I was talking with somebody and they said, well, why don't you start a student organization? And so I thought, I'm going to make a magic club. So I printed out the posters and I put them all over the walls, and then I sat back excited waiting, and sure enough, I got one email, another email, and another email, and soon we had enough to start the club. And so I was so excited. As a student group, we could book any room in the school we wanted. So we had 6 of us. I booked the 250-seat theater. And I remember we walked into this theater, this beautiful theater, just the 6 of us, all kind of socially awkward.
I like
and then
it.
we got to know each other, and we started doing magic together. And it wasn't even the first meeting, it wasn't even the second meeting, but the third time that we met, we even picked up a couple more people. I was sitting on stage and I was watching as we were supporting each other, as we were trying out new tricks. And then we weren't just talking about magic, we were actually helping each other and walking through the things that were going on in our personal life. And when I was sitting there, I sat back and I went, wow, this is a great group. Oh, that's what that means. Because a great group sticks together. They support each other even when times get tough, even when things are hard. We couldn't control the classes. We couldn't control the homework that we were assigned, but we knew that we had a support system right there. And I remember as we went into the winter break, that last meeting before the 6 weeks, then we wouldn't see each other again for another 6 weeks. I sat on the edge of the stage as the last person left, and the door closed, and you could hear the echo in the room, the empty seats, the empty walls. And I thought, it's not the group that made it great. All that energy that we felt, all that connection, it was because of each and every person that showed up and what they brought. Ladies and gentlemen, here at Hughes Peters, I've been inside your minds, we've laughed, we've had fun, we turned 2 people invisible. I can tell you, just from the little bit of time that I've been here with you, that this is a great group. And it's a great group because even though things have gotten hard, you work together, you support each other, you make the difficult calls, you have to make those difficult conversations with the customers, and you persevere. You support each other, and you overcome. And this is a really powerful group. But once again, it's not because of Hughes Peters, because at the end of the day, just like that Magic Club, Hughes Peters is just a name. It's just a building. Here in 3 or 4 hours, this room's going to be empty. All that laughter, all that energy is going to be gone. And the reason we felt what we felt here today is because of each and every one of you. And the reason we have anything to celebrate is because of how each one of you shows up every single day to make Hughes Peters worth celebrating. So on behalf of Hughes Peters, I want to say thank you. Thank you for how you show up every day. Thank you so much for every one of those difficult phone calls and difficult transactions. Thank you for showing up every day, even when we are surrounded with uncertainty. Because every time that we come together, miracles happen. And when we work together, truly anything is possible. My name is Daniel C. Schaffer. And do you know who you are? That's right. You are youth Peters, and you are amazing.
So let's keep it going for just a sec.
Okay.
Oh, look at that. Standing ovation. Boom.
Love it.
Another hand for Daniel.
Yes, sir. Good for you.
Oh.
So, Daniel, we're going to talk now about your overall journey. Now, I'm going to start off with what first drew you to the world of magic, and at what moment did you realize that this could be more than just entertainment? This is something that you could do for the rest of your life.
Oh, so I was 7 years old when I first got drawn to magic. And I was watching Lance Burton on TV, and he said, "All right, all you kiddos at home, go grab a penny." And then and then he said, "Put it in your hand, wave your hand over the top and go Lance Burton, Lance Burton, Lance Burton. And then put it under your pillow, and in the morning, it'll be $1. Make sure you tell your folks." And I put it under my pillow, and in the morning it was $1, and it was the first time I ever experienced magic. And that's what got me hooked. And then from there in junior high, my nickname was Magic Boy. Every single week I was practicing a new magic trick, and I was just going up and doing everything from bending quarters to shooting fire out of my hand. And then they go, "Did he just have fire?" And I'm like, "You can search me, there's nothing." Push the envelope with the school rules and everything. and
Now, where were you getting the resources to learn how? I don't want to know how you did the tricks. Where were you getting the resources to learn how to do these tricks?
Back then it was all out of the public library.
Okay, yeah, I was about to say
Because
the internet probably. We're about to say, it wasn't as fluid. So okay, so the public library.
yeah, YouTube wasn't a thing yet.
Right.
And so, it was the public library. There were some websites online that had, outlines of tricks, but there were no videos because back then we still had dial up and we had to wait. And so the library was really the best place.
Okay.
But, after I graduated high school, they were like, "Oh, you need to get a real job." So I went pre-med, and I was originally going to be an epidemiologist. And so I was doing pre-med, I was taking biology, public health, and then struggled with biology. And so I was like, well, I kind of like this physics thing. So I switched my major to physics. And then from there, I switched to atmospheric sciences. And I was about 3/4 of the way through a degree in atmospheric sciences when I got a job as the speakers chair at the University of Utah. And so I was the guy that was hiring in the speakers to come talk to the
Okay.
university. And and then at the same time, I was living in a slumlord apartment. It was $300 a month. And I was taking these courses over the summer that wouldn't work with any of my schedules. And so they're like, "Oh, we're going to let you go from this pizza place I was at because we can't work around your school schedule."
Mm.
And I was sitting there going, "Well, I don't have money for food. I don't have money for rent. I just got hired as the speaker's chair, and I want to make sure that I'm still going to school, doing all this stuff. I can do magic." And so I got a Tupperware and a cardboard sign, and I wrote college fund on it with a little arrow. And then I
Nice.
grabbed a deck of cards, a rope, and some coins and a handkerchief. And I just went on the streets of Salt Lake City, Utah, and just set up and just started doing magic on the streets. And the very first day I made, I think it was a couple $100. And so, back then rent was $300 for me. So I took half of that and put it towards food and shelter. And then the other half, I bought a business license. And then I started coming back every weekend. And then pretty soon people were like, "Hey, can you come do a birthday party?" And I was like, "I can put together a birthday party show." And so at first, it started just out of necessity. Technically, I was a reluctant entrepreneur. I did it just because it was what I needed to do to survive. And magic was a way that I could do it. And then over the year, I started doing parties. I started learning more. I found out I created the Magic Club. And then as I was working with the speakers and bringing them in, I would listen to them and I'd listen to their stories and I'd go, "I've been through so much. I've already done so many things. And, dealt with so much, it would be cool to be a speaker one day. And so back in 2014, as the speaker's chair, I knew that one day I wanted to be a speaker as well. And so over the years, probably 2 or 3 years, the magic's elevated. I was doing kids' parties, and then I was like, I don't really want to be doing kids' parties for the rest of my life. I want to do something that matters. I want to make a difference. And eventually, I had that goal of one day being a speaker. And so that's when I started looking at corporate magic. And, at first I thought, oh, well, this one, it needs to fool them. That's originally what I thought was all you needed to do to be a corporate magician was, it can't just be silly. It can't be slapstick like the kids magic. You can't just be like, oh, the wand broke. And then all the kids laugh.
Right.
It needed to fool them and really blow their minds. So I started doing stuff that just blew people's minds, but it wasn't a show and it didn't have anything beyond I fooled them. And so I did that for a couple of years and I was getting hired for different events. I was getting good reviews, but I hit this wall where I was like, I really don't know how to get better. And there's just a point where you don't know what you don't know, and that's the time to find mentors and ask for help. And that's where
Mm-hmm.
I got introduced to David Hyra. And David Hyra was a corporate magician. He was also a former executive for Sharp Electronics, and he was getting ready to retire. And he retired to Costa Rica, about half of a mountain. Like he had a thriving career. And he said, I want to find some magicians that I can pass down everything that I've been doing to. And so I flew to Costa Rica and I trained with David Hyra. And that's where I learned companies don't need you to fool them. What they really need is they need someone who can connect their people to them. And and so that's when everything shifted. I was no longer just the entertainment. I was now a consultant. I was helping them solve problems. I was helping
Mm-hmm.
people connect their companies to their people in fun, positive, memorable, and most importantly, meaningful ways. And I thought that that was it. Okay, this is what David Hyra built his entire career on, and so this is it. This is what I do. And his premise was to have one message that you do for everybody. And so I made my message, which, dives from something vulnerable. That's the key there. At a neurological level, a neurochemical level, what we're doing throughout the show is we're using storytelling to create dopamine. We're using comedy to release endorphins. And then that final message at the end, it has to be real and it has to be vulnerable because it releases oxytocin, which causes you
Mm-hmm.
to bond everyone
Emotions.
together.
Yep.
But it didn't work for every event. And so I had a message and it would kind of work for this one, but then an awards banquet, just the message didn't feel like it fit. And so I started kind of playing around with coming up with different ones. And then the pandemic hit and everything shut down. But it wasn't just my industry that shut down, everyone shut down,
Right.
including Les Brown.
Right.
And so Les Brown, he wasn't speaking, so he took on students.
Yeah.
And during that, I had the opportunity to mentor with Les Brown. And so I signed up for that. And working with him, he taught me how to dive into my own history and create essentially a database of stories that I can draw on, and then how to connect those stories to different points. And then based on that, and then what I learned from David Hyra, I came up with the idea of what if we just had custom messages that we did for every event? Because if I have 30 or 40 different stories that are ready to go and ready to use, then if this company says, well, these are the problems that we're having and the solutions we're looking for, I can be like, oh, this story works. I'll plug it here. And then this is the point that I make. I'll plug it here. And so then it really doesn't take as much work or preparation to create a custom message because I've already created it. And now it's just plugging and playing the stuff that is going to solve the problem.
I want to know then. So you've talked about mentor with your original man. You talked about mentoring with Les Brown. I'm interested. So you've got these two big influences in your life. How long does it take from, let's say, the final session with Les Brown for you to develop a presentation or an act that you really feel comfortable and say, oh, I've got it? You can always grow on it, but you can say, oh, I've got it. I'm in that right zone of where I need to be.
I would say for me, it takes about a year
Good.
before
Okay.
something feels polished.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to get out and do it before it's ready. But for me, it's about a year when everything feels like it's jiving and clicking. Like what you saw, that message, I had been performing that specific message for almost a year.
Love that you said that, because sometimes people think it's spontaneous. Some people think, oh, you're a natural born speaker, but it takes a lot of work to look that good for that shorter period of time. It took, you said, a year. No telling how many performances that you conducted to get to the point where you're saying, oh, Daniel was ready. Daniel is in the zone. And that's kind of a message that I wanted all speakers to learn. The preparation is important. The process is important. And don't be discouraged if it does not occur overnight.
In fact, you may have recognized half of that message because half of it came from a competition speech that I did 2 years ago. That's where the Discover magazine story came from, and figuring out the eye contact.
Yeah.
And so all of those little details that came from prepping for
Mm-hmm.
that competition, which ended up getting me second place
Nice.
at district on
Right.
that one.
Right. So
And yeah, I mean, I went to so many different clubs.
right.
And then one of the things I said is I have that database of all these different stories that are
Mm-hmm.
ready to go. The place that I practice those is Toastmasters. It
Okay.
is my laboratory, you know.
But I do again love the fact that you said for a 5 to 7 minute speech, it took you a year of working on it just to get it to the point where it's like, okay, this is what I want to use. I love that. Now, for musicians to influence people, how has being a musician shaped your approach to public speaking and audience engagement? You've talked about the story file, you've talked about preparation, but how has it influenced your approach?
Oh, I love this because most of the time, the hardest part for speakers is getting in front of people on stage.
Mm-hmm.
And so, having already done that for over a decade, it's easy for me to stand up in front of people. It's easy for me to do pauses because I've already worked on those with the magic. And so, it's also those little things like when you're telling a story, and for instance, you know, when I was younger, I had this tree house that I was building, and so I remember that at first I had to put the ladder up against the tree and then take the 2x4 and then I hammered it into the side of the tree. And then you have to climb up all the little actions of like grabbing onto the board and then lifting up and then having to like put the next board up. And, you know, all of that comes from the theatrics of being a magician. And
Mm-hmm.
anyone who's studied acting or
Right.
theater will have the exact same toolkit. And for anybody who hasn't done that, that wants to be a speaker, I highly recommend either attending improv or taking acting
Yeah.
classes because it's going to really elevate your storytelling, just knowing how to take these little moments right here and be able to stretch it and then make it bigger and bigger until pretty much fills the entire screen. I mean, even that right there, like those little tiny things, they come from practice.
Yeah. So in magic, like your audience knows that you are deceiving them, but they still trust you to entertain. How do you cultivate that same level of trust in speaking where the illusion is replaced by authenticity?
This is a problem that I had to solve for my signature keynote because I turned someone invisible in my show. And And I decided to add this to my keynote the last time that I did it. My keynote is performance beyond expectations. And what I do is I help people who have seen a lot of success and teams that have been successful. How do they adapt through change and be able to continue to have that level of success and be able to achieve beyond expectations? And I have a framework where I teach them to ask what if, explore what's possible, go all in, and then continue to learn and grow. But I mix it with magic. And then the entire premise is that you're essentially viewing your world through a little box. And this is a frame that you call your reality, but you're only seeing this much. And so, what we're teaching them how to do is how
To
to
expand it.
expand that. And as they expand it, they get more innovation, they're more creative, they're able to lead better, and they're able to adapt to change. So, magic is perfect for that. But magic is also illusion and it's deception. So, how do I go from this is trick to this is a real story? This is theater. This is reality. And the way that I did it is with music. Um, what you saw in the video was one of my, I call it Trojan horse motivation. So it's like 90% magic show with a message at the end. And so I don't follow the same rules in that one. But in my signature keynote, if magic is being done, music is playing. If it's theater, then there's music that's creating a feeling underneath. And then there's no music when I'm telling a real story or when I'm talking from my own personal experience. And so then that way there's this subtle difference between theater and then now let's break it down. We just turned someone invisible, but really we were creating different perspectives because when I do that, we're getting the entire audience to work together to create a magic trick for one person. So we've got three different perspectives going on. We have a perspective for the person who turns invisible. We have a perspective for the person who's in on it on stage that has to run and hide. And then we have a perspective from the audience that is giving the big reaction for the person who is turning invisible. And so I figured that was perfect to introduce the concept of perception and how our reality is built on what we see. But if I go straight from that into our reality is based on what we see, then it ruins the trick.
Right. Right.
And so the way that I got around it is I did just a small little lie. The the music shifts and everything. Everyone's having a blast. And then I talk about Plato's cave and the Plato's cave allegory, the idea
I'm
that,
going to cave. Yep.
yeah, people are shackled. All they see is the shadows
yeah.
on the wall.
And then they see their reflection. And yeah, go ahead. No, please go ahead. Go ahead.
And so I go through the entire allegory and then I say, what we experienced just here, there were different perspectives. To the perspective of the people standing on this or sitting on the stage, they were here the entire time. But for you in the audience, they completely vanished. So I do a little flip to preserve the magic trick, but also allow me to use the metaphor. And then that way the magic stays alive, but we can use the metaphor to move forward and help people realize what else have I based my reality on that could just be what I've been seeing? And how do I ask the right questions to expand it?
Okay. And I love that because as speakers, even if we're not mentalists or musicians, we are creating the world. We are creating the world for them, for your audience to follow us through. And we do things to sort of implement our thoughts into their mind, whether that's a sleight of hand, whether that's where we stand, whether that's the volume or the pacing of our voice. And I love how you're talking about you use magic and wonder, right, to implement these same type of strategies, but just in a different type of way. It's the skill behind it.
Yeah, I have another keynote. This is one that I put together recently. It's specifically designed for customer service. And this one's set up similar to my Trojan horse motivation. So the entire show is slightly tweaked to be a case study for how you can make people feel. And so
Mm.
throughout the entire thing, every single person that comes up on stage, we have a little chat as they come up on stage. Are you having a great time? What's been your favorite part so far? Oh, I'm so excited for that. It's like little things that are one on one in front of everybody.
Hmm.
Everybody sees me doing it to this person. So when people come up, they're comfortable, they're excited, they know that they're not going to be made fun of, they're not going to be made
Right.
to look like a fool. And everyone is treated like a VIP. We create all of these moments. There's laughter, there's wonder. The audience gets to participate. And then at the end, we reflect on that. And I go, I want you to think about how you have felt throughout this show. What did you feel? What did you like? And how can you get your customers to feel this exact same way?
And as a speaker, because again, I was having a conversation with someone a little while ago. I talked about the emotion that you create for your audience is more important than even the words that you say. The experience that you create in that environment is more important than the words or anything that you do. And you've got to master those principles if you want to connect with any type of audience.
Anne Lamott, I believe, said, people will remember what you do. People won't remember what you do. They won't remember what you say, but they will always remember how you made them feel.
Absolutely. Well, Daniel, tell me about a time where a trick maybe didn't go as planned on stage, and how did you recover from that? Uh oh. I saw you lean back and like, uh oh, really?
It doesn't happen as often as it used to.
Okay.
And that's part of just being a professional is, if something isn't working, you take it out of your show. Um, I had I had a big one fail. I was doing a show for Procter and Gamble. It was for Swiffer's birthday party. And they only had me for 30 minutes too. So it was one of like four tricks that I was doing. And I had a prediction. I don't know what happened. Went through the entire thing, and then we opened up the prediction, and I looked at what he had drawn, and it was completely off. And this was something that I had considered so surefire that I wasn't as prepared as I should have been. I thought I had, I, ugh. And so what I did is I just laughed and I walked through, and there were a couple of things that matched. And I'm like, "Oh, we matched this one and we matched this one." But let me tell and so what I did is I did a cold reading on this person because what I do is I bring them up and make them strike a pose, and then I draw like I'm making a sketch of them, and then it's just a stick figure. And it's like, this is the best
Okay.
I ever got at drawing. And I go, you know who this looks like? This looks like my old friend, Ronnie McDonald. Let's call him Ronnie. And so then he draws articles of clothing on him, and then they all have different colors. And so what I did is I cold read the volunteer, and I'm like, "Are you the type of person that does this and does this and does this?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "And you also do this, right?" And they're like, "Yeah." And so I just started revealing aspects of this person's personality and be like, "This is why. Because look, he has a green shirt. You're wearing a green shirt." And it's like what I was doing is I was picking up on you because you're so similar to Ronnie, but I was totally making it up on the spot. I was just finding some way to save it in some small way.
Those improv skills coming into play there. Oh, well, beyond the wonder of creating an illusion, like what message or transformation do you hope your audience will walk away with after your presentations?
I want them to be different because they saw me. Whether they see more wonder in the world, if they just look at things differently, and especially with the performance beyond expectations keynote. That is one that I have used personally. Those four frameworks, they've transformed my life. And a lot of times we grow up with these biases and we grow up with the different ways that we were taught this is how the world works. And if you were to just all of a sudden move to a different country, you'll understand the world works completely different in different places. The world is a very big place filled with lots of different cultures, and reality in truth are actually really hard to nail down because I mean, if going back to Plato's allegory, we perceive the entire world through
Through
shadows
mhm, through
cast
our
on our
lenses.
retinas.
Yep.
And so what I want them to do is I want them not only to take it to their team and to their company and to be able to start asking better questions, to start
Right.
exploring things that they wouldn't normally explore, but then to also examine their own personal beliefs. And maybe there's something that I have held ever since I was a child or something I grew up with. And this is the way that I believe that the world is. But it's okay for me to now to ask a question and get curious about how
Mhm.
somebody else believes or how somebody else perceives the world. Because it's not about changing your beliefs. I don't need anybody who sees me to change what they believe, but to understand that the world is more complex than maybe
Right.
they once believed, and to have better range so that they can collaborate better, so that they can dream bigger, and so that they can have a fresh perspective in the world.
Yeah. I was recently reading a book. It was on magic, and it's about the neuroscience behind it. And one of the things that it actually made me realize that as a human being, we have very faulty equipment. I think it described our eyes as a cheap, the lenses in our eyes are a cheap iPhone camera. And one of the way it made an illustration, it says if you look up at the stars, if you look at the sky in the daylight, you can't see any stars. If you look at it on a starry night, you can see lots of stars. Those stars were already there. They've always been there. They didn't just move in because it was nighttime. They're always there. But the mechanism, the lenses that we have don't allow us to see it. So we should kind of be cognizant that even though we may perceive something, that just might not be the way it truly is. And it's okay
Yes.
to ask
Here's
questions about that.
here's a really good example. You see, one of the things, there you go. One of the things that's built in cognitively is object permanence. You
Mm-hmm.
see, we have the 8 of diamonds and the, what is that? The
Three of
3
clubs.
of
Look at.
clubs,
Mm-hmm.
8 of diamonds, 3 of clubs. And if we take the 8 of diamonds and just move it out of frame, it'll actually switch places with the 3 of clubs. And the reason this works is because of our faulty equipment.
Right.
Because just like that,
Yep.
it just swaps.
Daniel, I got one more question, and then I am going to let you get out of here. If communication itself were a magic trick, what would be the secret behind it?
If communication were a magic trick, the secret behind it would be understanding that the point of communication is understanding. And to make sure that not only are you understanding the question, but that what you're saying is being understood. A lot of times, every conversation, it seems like, has an agenda, and good conversation doesn't have an agenda.
People are almost, I like what you said, the purpose of communication is to be understood. If when we are speaking with people, if all we are trying to do is to get our point across or respond, how can we understand what the other person is trying to convey? Okay. And this last question, then I will let you get out of here. What do you enjoy most about performing? Either your magic or your speaking or a combination of both. What do you enjoy the most?
That's a really great question.
Okay.
Because when I perform on stage, it's euphoric. But what feels really, really great is afterwards when people come up to me and say, "What you said just really made a difference," or "That's something that I've been struggling with, and I'm going to use that because that's going to really help me."
Solve the problem.
When I know that I'm making a difference,
Yeah.
that's what makes it all worth it. And the standing ovations are great too when I get
Oh,
those.
they feel good. Oh, they feel good. Yes, they do. But more importantly, even the standing ovation, as you mentioned earlier, is the transformation.
That's what really keeps me going
Yeah,
is that transformation.
because the standing ovation is for me, the transformation is for them. Okay, well, Daniel, where can the people find you at, sir, if they were looking for you on social medias or websites or any place?
Social media, my handle is Daniel C. Schaffer for Instagram and TikTok. That's DanielCSchaffer. And then my website is schaffermagic.com. SCHAFFERMAGIC.com. And if you're looking for holiday parties, I still have a lot of dates open. And so if you liked that message that you saw and you're like, we need to bring that to our company, hit me up and let's see if it's available.
Hit Daniel up, absolutely. And if you are out there, great ones, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like us. That is how the algorithm knows that you enjoy what you are seeing. This has been, as I said earlier, a fascinating conversation. Daniel, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with the Conversations with Champions.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, this was truly fun. And as I always like to tell everybody, please remember to be your best, to be inspired, to be great. We'll talk to you all later. Bye, everybody.